Welcome back to the SAAS podcast. I'm your host, Will Padilla. This is episode 29. I've got a great episode for you guys with James Manolis.
Everybody throws extra P's in there. They always think there's a P. There's no P.
Hans
Manolis.
Episode 29.
I get tongue twisted too.
James Manolis. We got episode 29. Excited for you to be here. If you guys don't know James, he is all over X / Twitter. He's all over LinkedIn. Him and I connected when he was at Phone Burner, and we just talked sales. And as I've known James and got the opportunity to be on his podcast, we really just talked about the power of content and the power of content generating leads and not having to do as many cold calls. James has a really important viewpoint on pipeline generation that I think everyone is going to appreciate. It's a different take. And so, James, I'm really excited to have you here. And would love a little intro as the CEO of Eurudite.
Thanks, man. Yeah, so, what we do is, we help companies, especially the smaller guys, fight against bigger players in the space. And so, that's through content campaigns. We do LinkedIn, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, dude, I'm super stoked to be here and talk shop. I've done a couple podcasts in the past few weeks, but most of it was around sales stuff. I'm excited to get more into the content part of it. So yeah, dude, I'm stoked to be here.
Well, appreciate it, man. Yeah, thank you again. So, okay, so as of right now, you and I are both content creators. We have many brand deals. Both partners with Zoom Info. Shout out to Zoom Info. We love you guys. And so, we're pioneering this new frontier of content creators, but in the B2B space. So thought leaders when it comes to sales tools, sales processes. And, you started your own inbound agency, right? Content-led agency. And Could you tell the audience a little bit about your business and what made you want to switch away from an outbound agency that by all accounts was crushing it to then go and switch motions and say, I want to go with more of a content-led strategy?
So I try to be as honest as I possibly can. The outbound agency I had maybe 6 months ago or whenever it was, in terms of revenue, was twice what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But that's perfectly fine because I'm happy with what I'm doing now. My story is back. It actually started at Phone Burner. I was cold calling and I came across Seth Godin's phone number. For the people listening who don't know who that is, Seth Godin is the god of all marketers. He is the most famous marketer in the history of marketing. He made Yahoo what it is, which is pretty cool. And I ended up cold calling him. He picked up on the second line or the second ring. He was like, hey, this is Seth. I had no idea he was going to pick up. I thought it was a fake number. And so I'm scrambling and I sound like an idiot over the phone. And he was like, hey, just chill out, take a couple seconds, collect yourself, and ask me one question. And I told him who I was, what I do, how I'm a cold caller. And I was like, I need a piece of advice. How do I level up even farther in my career? Because I've hit a peak at this point. And he was like, you have to find a way for people to come to you as opposed to you chasing after them. So the next day I'm posting on LinkedIn and I'm not getting any traction. I keep doing it. And then I'm waking up eventually to inbounds in my inbox. And I'm like, dang, this works. This actually works. I doubled down on Twitter. It's the same thing. It got to a point where I wasn't really cold calling at all anymore. I managed the whole team over there, but I was still calling and I just completely stopped. My LinkedIn and Twitter were bringing in 2 or 3 a day. And so I just absolutely fell in love with it. When Phone Burner and I parted ways, I was like, you know what? I know outbound better. Let me do that. And I'm doing it. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, this is painful and it's a waste of time. The revenue isn't closing the same way it would if they would, have just came inbound from my socials. And so I made the switch and I did this. It's been so rewarding. The inbounds that I get are great. The everything is much smoother. And so, I went from this hardcore outbound guy to this hardcore inbound guy. But a lot of what I do still has a lot to do with selling. And so I'm sorry for going on a tangent there, but that's a full story.
It's definitely not a tangent, bro, because I basically popped off on TikTok from my cold call strategies as an SDR. And that was great, but I'm very transparent with people that the days that I cold call is probably, no joke, maybe once a week, where I'll do a big cold call block of 100 to 150 calls once a week. as a mid-market account executive. Most of my week is spent closing, doing deals, creating LinkedIn content, putting proposals together, dealing with legal. So my cold call time is not as what it used to be. However, I feel like I'm remiss if I don't tell my audience, how am I generating revenue still? Because I'm still generating revenue, but like, how am I doing it? And I'm just telling them, guys, it's through LinkedIn. I get people messaging me. They want demos. They want to close business through my LinkedIn videos, or they just see me active on LinkedIn and they feel like I'm a trustworthy source through my company. I mean, that's the future. So from your perspective, as someone who is literally building a business off of this, and it's alive and well, and you're going to go out and get more clients, I guess, what advice do you have for sellers who say, you're wrong, you're dead wrong, cold calling's the way to go? Who would waste time on creating content on LinkedIn?
I mean, every channel works. The argument that this is dead or that is dead is like a little bit overrated. My argument, which has basically been the same, is, anybody who's been cold calling knows how the decline has been. And people are trying to compensate for the decline of pickups by calling more people and doing more. How much longer is that going to work? The people who pick up anymore, they're kind of like, the people in video games who just kind of walk around and they don't really do anything.
NPCs?
Yeah, the NPCs. A lot of people who are picking up phones are like replying to emails. Not all of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them are NPCs, and they take meetings all day because they're, the tire kickers. And so that's what I've seen more and more over the years. But on the flip side, when you create content, I can go on forever about this. The people that come to you, they're ready to buy. And so, yeah, you can cold call, you can do all that stuff, you can create a lot of pipeline. If we compare our pipeline, though, like me and anybody who's like swearing that cold calling is away, show me how much open pipeline you have. Show me how much is closed in the past 6 months or so, and I'll show you mine.
From cold
I'm
calling,
gonna be I'm going to be at 30%. You're going to be at 10 or less, probably less than 10%. So it also takes less time. And the other part of it too is how content compounds over time. Which a lot of people, like, cold callers aren't going to compound over time.
You can't.
It's very you put in what you put in. That's about it.
Right. You get what you get out of that session.
Exactly.
Where content can be evergreen. So, what's the biggest deal that you've landed through content?
So I actually invited someone to a podcast. It was an ex company I used to work for, and I invited the CEO to the podcast, and it ended up becoming a deal. This was at Phone Burn. I can't talk too much about it,
right?
Because NDAs and stuff. But that, like, me just talking to him. Let me rewind this back a couple seconds here. The whole story how this happened was I posted something really offensive on LinkedIn. I forget what it was, but it got a lot of people upset. It was probably about cold calling or something like that. And he commented on it, and he was just ripping me up. And I was like, is this guy serious right now? And I'm looking, and I'm like, it says he's the CEO of this company. I was like, he wasn't the CEO when I was there. And I comment back to him, and we're going back and forth arguing, and I was like, let's talk it out on my podcast. He comes on, and then we really hit it off. And I'm like, hey, I don't want to make this weird for you, but after the podcast is over, I'm like, you're a perfect fit for what we do. I was like, maybe, if you're up for it, you can check it out. If you like it, great. If you hate it, then, worst case scenario is you're spending another 30 minutes with me as I show this to you. And it ended up being a hit. And so that would have never happened if I didn't upset him in the comment section.
Okay. That is a good story. And I can relate to that every once in a while with some of my LinkedIn content, because LinkedIn's very tricky, where I feel like you're going to offend someone just by saying like an opinion on anything regarding sales. Like, someone's going to disagree with it. So how do you get over that mental barrier of always putting out authentic content?
I'm actually working with someone right now to help them get over this slump.
Like, you're coaching them.
Yeah, well, I'm writing content for them.
Okay.
They have a massive...
Because you're ghostwriting now, right?
Yeah, we do ghostwriting for people and everything. But, like, this guy's got an account 10 times bigger than me. I'm doing some pieces, and he's one of the goats, and he messages me, and he's like, hey, I don't feel good about this. He's like, everybody has ripped me up in the comment section. He said it's so split. Half the people hate me, half the people love me. And my response was like, well, how much engagement did you get? He's like, well, I got like 82,000 impressions. He was like, I got a couple meetings out of it, whatever it was. And I'm like, this is what content looks like. Like, if you don't have an opinion, then you can't really get away with it anymore. Back in 2020, like, it was okay to post generic cold calling tips.
Dude, it was.
And that was like the wave, man. Everybody was doing it because everybody was afraid to do it. And then the few people who did it stood out. But now you go through LinkedIn and it's like, I don't know how you feel. I scroll on LinkedIn for 2 minutes and I'm just like, my eyes are red. I'm like, oh, I got to get off.
It is.
And so, yeah.
It is pretty draining. It seems that it's the most generic stuff.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse.
Because shout out to Sarah Plowman. Her and I, we know each other decently. We had a couple calls, but I wouldn't say we're super close, but I've been just watching her from afar. Dude, she's rewrote the rules on what it means to cold call. So it's traditionally I and other sales gurus, I guess you could say, or sales influencers would post generic cold call advice. And it worked. Our content popped off and it did really well. Dude, it doesn't go off anymore. You know what type of content does go off is that Sarah Plowman type of interactive cold calling. They want to see it live. Like, the audience and viewer now is like, no, I will not view this unless I'm actually seeing you make cold calls. And I did a video for Zoom Info recently, like 2 weeks ago. And I said, I'm going to give this kind of like Sarah Plowman type style a shot. Hey, I'm going to rip a cold call block. I don't even care if I book any meetings, but I'm just going to film myself getting hung up on or whatever. And I did. And it got like 13,000 views and almost 700 likes on TikTok and like 40 shares, 80 saves. And I'm like, whoa, okay, for a branded sponsorship post, this did quite well. So you're right. It has changed where people just want that interactive stuff. And so or opinions, which I know you're heavy on the opinions. So
I'm super heavy on opinions.
Can you speak to, because this is good for everyone to hear whether they're worried about losing a sale or, potentially pissing off a customer that looks at their content, or let's look at the inverse. Hey, they're worried about if a brand deal is going to not like some of the content they say, and then they're going to pull out. How do you deal with that? Number one, still posting your authentic opinion, knowing that it might upset a potential client and they won't want to work with you, or upset a potential brand partner and they don't want to work with you. How do you get over that?
This got so bad because I'm so opinionated and there was so much pushback. My wife was like, hey, you know what? I need to check your LinkedIn post before anything that's offensive. I got to check it beforehand. So like anything that's absolutely like off the rails, going to upset everybody, going to get me banned on the platform. Like, hey babe, can you check this out really quick? And she'll be straight up with me if it's too much. But, a lot of people, there's no nice way to say it. Like, if you have to be opinionated. Nobody cares about it. Okay. If it makes you feel bad, you got to suck it up. Plain and simple. You got to suck it up. Yeah. And so, I've lost clients and I've lost possible deals because I said something super nasty, or offensive or opinionated, and it really bothered people. There was one post, and I don't even remember what it was, but I get a message from my biggest client, and he's just livid. He's like, dude, I'm not doing this with you. 2 minutes later, I get a message from, I remember what it was. I put a post out on Valentine's Day saying, never trust a salesman with an ugly wife. And it was that's what it was. And so,
was it a joke though? Was it a joke?
I mean, it's half a joke.
Oh,
it's half of his. But I lost a customer over that because he's like, he was already on the fence.
I can see that being like someone's like, hey, what's up with this? You know what I mean?
But maybe he had an ugly wife. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
And then one of who I'm still really close with, somebody else was like, hey, just so you know, I'm not trying to cancel you. He's like, you need to take my testimonial off. And I was like, it's all good. But we still talk back and forth all the time. We're still really good friends. And so he's not connected with me on LinkedIn just because he doesn't want to be affiliated with me because it's offensive or whatever. But at any rate, I've won deals though.
Right.
Within that time frame, I've won new deals. And that post specifically, like, I don't think that post got me a deal, but it got me a lot of people in who had no idea who I was. The post, I had to take it off of LinkedIn. It's still on Twitter, and it blew up on Twitter.
But I feel like that, but okay, this is again where I think I'd like you to speak on this, is because I go through this little back and forth wrestling match with myself over what goes on LinkedIn versus what stays on TikTok and what stays on YouTube Shorts. Because I feel like there is a clear difference of platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube where you can let it rip. And it's like, if people want to go crazy on you, they can go crazy on you. But the moment it crosses over to LinkedIn, some reason there's a weird unspoken rule that you have to stay kind of in the bounds of PC, PG, whatever on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm a huge Elon Musk fan.
Yeah.
I just think Elon's the man. Like, I think he's changing the world, and
Yeah,
I've had people who
I'm a fan of him as well.
I mean, I think a lot of people should be.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing cool stuff. Like, whether you like, conservative politics or whatever. But, I made a post, and I think in the comment section I talked about him somewhere. People got really upset about it, and what I've come down to realize is like that, as long as it's not going to get you banned on the platform, post whatever you want. That's been my experience, and people will get upset and they'll say, well, what if people get mad at me? Good, because your content is supposed to attract and repel.
Wow.
I got that advice from a good friend, and ever since I heard that, I went all in on it.
Yeah.
Like, if people are going to get upset about these things, like whether it's your political beliefs, religious beliefs, do you really want to work with them anyway if they're going to get upset with you over it? That's how I feel.
And that is the age-old question, right? It's if you're being your authentic self and you're not causing harm to someone, you're not, again, we know the lines on that, right? Like, don't be offensive to certain groups. But if you're just saying, hey, this is what I represent, this is my authentic self, I'm not coming at anyone, I'm just saying this is what I represent. And if someone doesn't want to work with you for that, well, was that even someone that you wanted to work with in the first place? And I think that is the question all content creators and all sales reps who create content have to ask themselves. If you're going to want to be a thought leader on any platform or a content creator in general, you and I both have received tons of, hey, I think both you and I have both made it to LinkedIn Lunatics. Or is it just me?
There a few times.
Is it just me?
No, I made a joking satire post a few weeks ago. I'm sitting on my couch going like this, saying, I'm working while you're watching the Super Bowl.
I saw that too.
And that everybody was like, on the Reddit, it was like, do you want us to clap for you? And I didn't get upset about it. I thought it was so funny.
Well, yeah.
It was so funny, man.
It's like, I've made it on LinkedIn Lunatics a couple times. And I think I made it on LinkedIn Lunatics about something ridiculous about Zyn. I had posted how
It's tobacco, right? The chewing tobacco?
the lip pouches.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah.
I had so I'm not gonna, make up something. I said, hey, I never tried Zyn, but then I tried it, and I did it for probably 2 or 3 weeks consistently. Anyways, I had a dentist appointment, and I basically had like a routine checkup. My dentist immediately flagged. He's like, "What's up with your gums, man? They're super sensitive." And I was like, "Yeah, I've been doing Zyn." And he's like, you got to stop this, like, immediately. And so literally all I did was I said, hey, didn't really understand the risks of Zyns. A lot of sales professionals right now are addicted to these. They'll have 4 or 5 a day throughout the workday. I'm not coming at anyone, but, I think that there's a bolstering of the Zyn industry in the sales world, and people came at me. They're like, you're this, you're a loser, you're a Zyn hater, it's actually not bad for your gums. Look at the research. And I'm like, whoa. But it's just funny, though, you said it, though. When you say an opinion, it doesn't matter which side of the fence I could be on. Because if I went on the side of the fence that said everyone should Zyn, I'm going to get people on the health side that are saying you're an idiot, you're this, you're that. Yeah. And then when I actually state facts about the health of gums, the Zyn people come for me and say I'm a loser. It's like, dude, you can't please anyone, so you might as well just say an opinion and stick to it. And I think that's like really the moral of the story.
Yeah, I mean, one of my clients who, like we had a post that blew up, and he was another one who got like a lot of heat for it. And I was like, well, you know what? You want to try different things? Let's try different things. It's okay. Like we could try something else. I said, let's make a recovery post. So it talked about the post from the last week, and it said, I'm sorry if I upset you. Here's how I feel. And it broke everything down step by step. The comment section was the same thing as the first time.
Same thing.
Yeah, and it's like, the worst thing you could do is apologize for something that you said, unless you're being racist or sexist.
That's what we talked about, right?
Yeah,
Like those lines where you're going at a certain group, that's clearly not okay. And that's where, you're not being your authentic self. You're representing something that's hateful towards another group. Well, then we have an issue. You know what I mean? So it's like, but again, totally like you said, like you saying, hey, I like Elon Musk. First of all, I'm a huge investor in Tesla. I mean, that's just straight up fact. I've been invested in Tesla since 2020 early, like right when the dip happened after COVID. And like, I've just been throwing more and more and more and more at it. I know it's down right now. I don't care. I'm just going to keep throwing more because I like Tesla as a car. It's a great car. I love what they're doing with Starlink. I love what they're doing with the solar panels. And I love a lot of the other things that they have going on. And so the fact that I'm saying, hey, I'm a big investor in Tesla, big as in for me that, probably not big to other people, but yeah, I threw a decent amount of money at it. But by me saying that statement, that's going to somehow piss someone off. Like just by me saying that I like Tesla cars and I like the Tesla organization, somehow that's controversial. But again, that's not going at someone. That's not being offensive towards anyone. That's not being hateful. That's just me stating a statement.
Well, I think half of the strategy on socials, at least for me, I'm not good in camera like how you are. Like I struggle with it. So for me, I like to use my writing.
Yeah.
That's been my strong suit for me. And, I did a campaign for a clay competitor. It was a sponsored post I did for them. And I really sat down thinking how do I do this? I went right after Clay in that post, and it was it got a lot of people upset, but the conditions on that, and I can talk about it because there's no NDA, but the conditions on that were, it's a performance-based type of thing. So the more impressions you get, the more you get paid. I optimized completely.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done anything like that before. It was the most I've ever been paid for a brand deal.
Are you serious?
And I'm super serious about it. It was for every 1,000, it was whatever, another however many dollars. Impressions. And so I got 167,000 impressions on it, and it got a lot of people upset, but that's what I optimized for. It also created 300 signups in the span of less than a week. And so, a lot of people, they don't want to be aggressive, but that's the strategic benefit. And by the way, Clay is a super nice company. I'm sorry for going at you guys all the time if you listen to this, but you're the big boy in the space, and you have all these smaller guys trying to compete with you. If somebody has a strategic benefit over you, whether it's price or functionality for a certain feature or whatever, then by all means, we're going to find a way to attack you in that way. But a lot of people would say, oh, it hurts your brand. It might hurt your personal brand, company brand. It's obviously not the case because we had 300 signups. Short term, it won't hurt you. And so there are big brands or smaller brands going after bigger brands like that all the time. And it's a legitimate play. Adam Robinson went after 6 Sense, even though they're not true competitors. Joey Gilkey went after Apollo.
A lot of people are going after 6 Sense right now. Keegan and the Wormley team, who's been on the podcast a couple times with me, they're going at him.
Well, they should. And that's the thing, too. A lot of people say don't go after other companies because it's going to hurt your reputation. If there was a serial killer in a room with you and your family and your friends, would you really be oh, I'm not going to call that person out because I might ruin my reputation?
No.
Of course not. You call them out. So if you know that 6 Sense is going to trap you into a 3-year contract without your, confirmation because it's hidden in the contract somewhere, what's wrong with calling that out?
That's
You're
so
saving
wrong.
other people.
Yeah.
Exactly. So people say, oh, you should never bash people. Of course you should. If you're going to help everybody else out, you're actually doing a good thing. A lot of people have a hard time with that.
Well, a blessing, actually. I don't know if I've ever actually told this story publicly, but probably 3 years ago, I interviewed with 6 Sense and made it to the final round. And dude, the team was, I mean, it was quite literally one of the worst interviews I've ever had. And it was bad. And so I look at it as a blessing that it did not work out. The people that interviewed me were quite rude, and it was just a really unpleasant experience from a candidate experience, so bad where they said, hey, we'll get back to you. And I, at the end of the meeting, said, don't even worry about it. I don't want to work here after this interview. Hopefully you can understand and respect that. And like, that was the only time in my career, interview career, I've ever had to say that. And again, there's two sides to every story. So they might say, hey, your interview was actually terrible. And I could say, hey, I own up to that, right? But it's like, I really do look at that as a blessing that I did not end up working there on the final round. It was like my 6th or 7th round. So it was that and then an offer. And so could have worked at 6 Sense.
Yeah. But you see, like, someone's going to listen to this podcast and they're going to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't apply at 6 Sense, which is a good thing. Now they know. You know, and like, yeah.
It's just like it's just a honest truth. It's like Glassdoor, right? How someone could write on Glassdoor, hey, this is my interview experience. That was my interview experience there. I've never told that story publicly until now. And, you know, nothing against them as an organization, but my personal experience with the interview was quite poor. And that's just the truth. So,
yeah.
You know.
But a lot of people, like going back to, a lot of people would say never talk bad about those people ever. But I mean, you realize like there's so much power saying it as a non-anonymous person.
Right.
If you post it on Glassdoor, you're anonymous. What good is that going to do for anyone? There's no credibility because nobody knows who you are. But if they see Will Padilla posting about or talking about it, you're going to save someone from applying at that job. And right now, like I'm working with a company. It's an accounting software, and they're super tiny. It's like a team of 5 people, and they're like, we don't know what to do. We need help with marketing. And my default, I run these things I like to call attack campaigns. This isn't like all I do, by the way, but I find myself doing this quite a bit where I do a lot of these attack campaigns. And it's a strategic way to find dirt about a competitor and then go after them. So I was like, you know what? Give me like 3 competitors. He's like, QuickBooks, NetSuite, and Docket. I say QuickBooks and NetSuite, they're way too big. I was like, if I were you, I would connect with some people at Docket and see if you could find some dirt. Lo and behold, there were people over there who weren't getting paid, who were being overworked, who were being pushed to stay like working late hours. And like, there's so much other stuff that we haven't, and maybe that's not true. That's from one person.
Right.
But I'm like, after I heard that, I'm like, well, this is something that we'll use when the time's right for this attack campaign. And so, like if there's legitimate dirt on your competitors, use it against them because you're going to help someone out, whether it's a customer, like a potential customer, or if it's someone applying there. There's, so I can go on about this for quite a while, but, like be really bold with your words.
Okay. And how about your advice for individual sales reps at companies wanting to drive leads through content? What would you say is like, hey, this should be your initial strategy?
So at first, let me preface it with this. When you start posting on LinkedIn, you're going to get a lot of pushback from your manager. Maybe even if you're at a smaller company. I've had the CEO call me before saying, take this down, like right now, like or else we have to get rid of you. And, that will happen. It's perfectly okay if it happens. So
were you prepared to go down if they were to let you go for
100%.
Content? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm no matter what it is, I'm 100% always ready to ruin my reputation over my opinions. And I think that's how everybody should be.
Dude, that needs to be like said, because who do people pay attention to in society? People that are not afraid to share their opinions.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people who have built a brand off of things like, general advice. I don't know how they did it. Like I like Justin Welsh a lot. I think this is a really good example. But when I look at his content now, it feels so general that I'm kind of like, this doesn't even resonate with me anymore. This just looks like every other.
I don't know who that is.
You know who Justin Welsh is? He's like the biggest guy on LinkedIn.
I've heard of him a couple times,
Okay.
but I've never clicked. I think I follow him, but I've never. Here's the thing, LinkedIn must be doing something to push his content because I've never seen it on my feed ever. He must be getting buried because I've never seen his content.
I think a lot of people, they see content like that, like from these really big creators, and they say, I'm going to do exactly what they did. Alex Hormozy is more recent, so maybe that's a better
He's a
example.
very generalist, bro.
Yeah.
He
When you
does say
start
some
niche, yeah.
he does say some controversial stuff, but like I'm gonna be totally real with you. I have never taken a piece of his advice ever.
I did when I first found out about him, and I've completely, like, I was like one of those Mosey guys. I was going to get one of the nose strips and everything.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I wasn't going to do that.
No, I mean people. I mean I did. I mean I was on kind of the nose strip grind for like a couple months, but I realized
No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't get that. But, you know, like when he first started out, I think I followed his account when he had like 30,000 followers. And it was like, here's how you can evade all your taxes without getting in trouble and stuff like that. It was like really specific for business owners, and it was like really deep and specific stuff. And over time, as you gain more of an audience, you go more general in general, right? Like our mutual, well, I like to say friend, but I just met him, like Morgan.
Yeah, Morgan's my guy. Yeah.
Like, dude, Morgan used to post like even more niche stuff than what he posts now, and like really get into the trenches. His content is still really, really good, but he had to kind of dumb it down because 80% of people on LinkedIn are complete dummies. And
It's more general.
It has to be. Otherwise, it's not going to resonate. But everybody tries to do that at first because they see people with big audiences.
Oh.
And they say, oh, I need to make general content. No, you need to make niche content and then get general over time.
That's a good point, dude. That's like literally how I've built my content. Is it's been very niche, but again, like I'm very candid with people. There's certain things that I will post on LinkedIn, and there's certain things that I won't. I will leave most of my. I know this is gonna piss some people off, but I'm just gonna post it on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, and I'll not post it on LinkedIn because here's the reality. We talked about this. As long as it's not being offensive to a certain group and I'm just stating my opinion, that's my own personal social media. LinkedIn is kind of looked at as differently because you're kind of representing the company with the company badge directly, where the company can call you up and say, James, take this down. Where if they were to call me up on my TikTok content, I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. And I've never gotten a call, but it's the vibe. It's the overall vibe of I don't like your content, but I'm not going to say it.
I'll say this too. If you're new and you're trying to get into content, your content is going to suck so bad for the first year. And people, especially people at your company, they're going to see it and they're probably going to judge you for it. Some people won't. Some people won't even think about it. I worked with one guy when I first started out, and he was like, I see all the little, because I had a podcast back then, and it, I took a pause on mine, but when I first started my podcast, I would do these graphics, and it would have the person's face, and then it would have like the name of the podcast in the back, and he's like laughing at me. He's like, yeah, I see all the little graphics you do, like you think you're, hot stuff and this and that, and it bothered me so much. I still think about it today, but at the same, I've had plenty of big people on my podcast, like really big people on, and it's been great. And I've closed deals from it. I've brought in inbounds as I slept at night. So people are going to give you a hard time when you first start. Just gotta ignore it.
Just gotta ignore it. That's great advice, bro. For everyone listening, as we kind of wrap up, I think it's important just to be yourself on content creation. Share something that's thoughtful, that's niche, that can be applied, as you said about the Hormozy example. Like when you start out, try and get super tactical, try and give people like, I did this worked, here, try this, and let it just see what happens. If the market responds well, that means they want that type of content, double down on it and keep going. But James, I guess for you, what, I guess number one, where can people find you? And for your business, what would someone want to reach out to you for?
So, if you want to find me, my name is too hard. You're not gonna know. You're not gonna be able to type my name in. Type in the Mike Tyson of ghostwriting. I'll be the first person that pops up there. My handle on every platform except for LinkedIn is at hypersalesman. And what we do is we help challenger brands fight back. If you're a tiny company and you're going up against a giant behemoth, we'll help you fight that fight through marketing, all through organic, LinkedIn and Twitter, and we'll tailor a strategy specifically for you.
Okay, great. And last question for you. Take on B2B influencers. Here to stay? Or do you think it's going to be gone like the wind?
B2B it's something I've thought about a lot. I think it's here to stay. I think it's going to change a little bit. I think that a lot of the smaller guys who are landing brand sponsorships now, I think it's going to be harder for them to get brand sponsorships. And what I suspect is going to happen is companies are going to start pushing for lower brand sponsorships. Instead of paying $1,000 or $1,500, you're going to get paid $100, maybe $200, because everybody wants to do it. And unless you have a really big brand or a really niche audience, I have a feeling you have the opposite take.
No, I know. I think no. You said $100 to $200. I'm like, oh, those days are dead and gone for me. I could go back to that. No way.
I mean, a lot of companies, like, I won't name anybody. A competitor, ZoomInfo. I'm not going to say who it was.
Sure.
They reached out to me for one, and they were like, yeah, most we could do is 300. And I'm just like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like, if I show you my numbers for how well my ZoomInfo stuff performed, it would be ridiculous to pay me that little. And so, yeah.
Forget them. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, dude,
it's not worth it.
No, dude, it's definitely not worth it. Well, dude, this has been a pleasure to have you on episode 29 of the Sell It SaaS podcast. I really just appreciate you and love the content you're putting out, and definitely you had my attention with a lot of the posts that you do as you share your opinion and you're not afraid to share your opinion. And I think for a brand who wants to go up against someone big, it's going to take an aggressive approach. So I like what you're doing.
Thank you, man. And I appreciate you having me on.
Always. Thank you. All right, guys, subscribe, follow the podcast. Like 90% of you are just listeners and you don't subscribe. So I need you to subscribe to help your boy out. Later, guys.